Weirdos, welcome to True Weird Wednesday happy hour, everybody. Cheers. We're so glad to be with you. Cheersies. Mm.
Looks like I'm drinking a urine specimen, but
Oh gosh.
it's Lips Berry Diet Tea.
Is it good? Why is it that color?
This is one of my favorite things on earth. I love this.
Is it white tea? Is that why it's so pale?
I don't know why it's so pale, but it's delicious. It really is.
It's the little things, isn't it?
It really is, Sherry. It's gotten to the point.
It really has gotten to the point where it's the little things. Like, I was so excited today because, well, first of all, I knew that we were going to talk about weird stuff, but also because I had like an hour and 15 minutes where I wasn't working. And I just felt like one of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, like what to do first. So I cleaned some litter boxes and tried to get the lizard to eat. So basically it was just self-care and indulgence and luxury all afternoon. Welcome to all of our true weirdos to Wednesday night True Weird happy hour. I have a question for everybody that is going to be joining us tonight. And that is, we want to hear something that's happened to you that's strange, and maybe you've been hesitant to talk about it because you don't want to be made fun of. You don't want to be shouted down. You don't want to seem peculiar or attention seeking. We want to hear something peculiar that has happened to you tonight, because it's super interesting to us the way people will have more than one experience, like last year, about a couple months ago, we interviewed this amazing man, retired top secret clearance Air Force officer who has had he's a Bigfoot tracker, and he's had a handful of experiences, but he's had other things happen too. And I think that sometimes they cluster. I think sometimes people that feel that they've had a paranormal experience maybe have also had a high strange experience. So if that's you, we definitely want to hear from you. And Heather, do we have goodies to give away tonight in the stream?
I think we're going to give away a mug or two. So every comment counts as an entry, and I will message you after today.
In Facebook, yeah, a True Weird Stuff
I didn't
mug.
have a True Weird mug. Oh well, sorry.
I know mine is upstairs. I just washed it. So, and I don't want to ask Kevin to go hopping up and down the stairs to get it. He spent the afternoon, the pollen here is like a blizzard. And he spent the afternoon hosing all the pollen off so that I could sit outside for my 1 hour and 15 minutes. Not working. So, hey, everybody, we've got Megan Miller from Eugene, Oregon, and Marlene Clegg. What is high strange?
There's Marlene. I see Jane, Plainville.
And Crystal Bianco and Roger Harabi. Heather, what's the easiest way to explain high strangeness? I mean, kind of anything that is outside of the bounds of our known physics, reality.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yes. So I talked about it in an Oddcast few years ago. I've had two big missing time experiences in my life. And one of them I had never talked about. I don't even like to think about it, to be honest with you. And what happened before I got home hours after I had left to go to CVS to pick something up. What happened between leaving CVS and getting home was high strangeness. There was a vehicle that came up alongside of and over top of mine. And I'm going to throw up. I can't even really go there. It's so upsetting. We'd have to dig out that episode of the Oddcast and put it back into the feed. But an example of high strange is if you watch Skinwalker Ranch, that's all high strange, right, Max?
Right. Anything. We had Tammy on here, said that she works at a Titanic exhibit in Kentucky, and she had a face-to-face with an apparition of a first-class passenger from Titanic.
Girl, can we talk about that? The Titanic museum exhibit thing in Pigeon Forge. I went when Karamia had a dance competition there. I went to that. Max, I told you, it was the most ghoulish thing I've ever participated in. It was truly horrifying. And was it last year? There's an actual iceberg. You walk out onto the deck of the ship and it's nighttime and they've got an actual giant like hill of ice and it's super cold and it's very eerie and you can touch the iceberg, right? Well, it was a year or so ago, I think, that a big chunk of that iceberg calved, and this is at the Titanic exhibit, and hit a person. And
Oh,
if I remember right, I know that she was severely injured. I, I don't know that she lost her life, but yeah, that's some tap dancing on the grave, like for me. And it can't be creepy enough to suit this girl. Like my daughter went and saw John Wayne Gacy's clown costumes and took pictures of them for me. She's like, "Mom, I know you're going to love this." Like literally it's hard to have it be too creepy, but the Titanic thing was really really rough. Cheryl Newton said, "My family and I saw a ghost after midnight mass many years ago. I think I saw her first and was like, 'Do you guys see that?' And they did. But that was the end of it. We just got out of the car and went into the house." This is what I think happens. I think a lot of us have felt something, seen something, experienced something, but it happens so quickly and you can't prove it, you can't explain it, and so you dismiss it. What do you think, Max?
yeah, I think that happens a lot of times. You don't talk about it. I can remember I went through a very difficult time in my life and I had a dream. And in the dream, I was in like this room and I looked through and I could look through the portal on the other side. I saw an older version of myself and I went like this. It's going to be okay.
Can we talk for just a second about quantum tunneling? Because I was reading something. I have so many weird, creepy things to tell y'all. You're gonna have to mute me, Heather, okay, so that I don't just tell everybody weird, creepy things for the next
Well,
hour.
it's the weird and creepy things week, so it's your time.
So, the idea that not so much that reality is a simulation, but just that we just don't have any understanding what reality is. We don't understand what consciousness is. And a person, so this article I'm reading about quantum tunneling, Max, what you just described, it was reality is the idea of time travel in quantum tunneling is not time travel the way we think of it, like, ding, 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 I'm in the cowboy era, right? It's more like the quantum space collapsing in on itself, and what you're looking at is a mirror, and you're on the other side of it. And
Mhm.
what you just said just gave me like the whoas
Yeah.
because that sounds very much like what I was reading. Listen to what Suzanne Banks said. One night I couldn't sleep and I was anxious. I finally went downstairs and told my mother I couldn't sleep. I felt like our house was going to burn down. The next morning, we heard the neighbor's house down the road had burnt down. See, that's the other, this like premonition, precognition. One of the ways that one of the theories to explain that is exactly the circularity of time, that it's not linear. I mean, Einstein told us that. This isn't just some crazy cat lady telling you that. Einstein told you that. So time is circular, not linear, and sometimes um, the walls are thin, and what seems to you like a premonition or a precognitive dream is actually a glimpse of what's to come.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I certainly had that experience. I didn't tell anybody because I was scared to death. People think I was losing my mind, but you know, so that's quantum tunneling. Well, I had
You
never
should
heard that.
Google that. You should look into
I'll
that.
have to look
Yeah.
into that.
I fell down a crazy Reddit rabbit hole. Do we have any Reddit people here tonight? Because Reddit is, if you think TikTok has stolen your life, girl, let me introduce you to my old friend Reddit. So there's a subreddit, um, and on it, this guy who is a search and rescue officer. That's what he does for a living, and he works in national and state parks. And so he was telling all these amazing, because there's a lot of sketchball stuff that happens in the national parks. a lot. And some of it is not paranormal. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of national park lands, protected lands, inaccessible to the public. Like there are whole swaths of Mesa Verde that in Colorado that you cannot get to, right? They're national park land. And sometimes sometimes the military uses that for exercises, security training, ranger training. There's all sorts of legitimate stuff that happens in those national park spaces. But there's also a lot of inexplicable stuff that happens, documented, that is you could Google it. People disappear and they're found many, many months or even perhaps a year or more later, and their clothing is not at all dirty or deteriorated, like no time has passed. Um, Sometimes they have food in their stomach, and yet they're deceased, and their body, like everything's wrong, or the body will be found in a place that is just inaccessible. Right? These are true, actual things. Well, in this subreddit, this search and rescue dude was talking about, this is an urban legend that is so delicious, Max. Um, Random staircases in the woods.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Oh, yes, this is Heather's jam. You see, girl, Heather is so our people. You see why we're here with you tonight. Random staircases in the woods. And when the first time he saw one, he asked his senior officer what it was. And the officer was like, don't talk about it. Never go up one. Never touch one. Just stay away from them. They're there, and you just don't need to worry about it, right? So this real weird shrouded mystery thing. And one of the staircases that he came upon during, it's all search and rescue. It's all missing people, missing children, missing hikers. That's all that they do, search and rescue. And so he's on a search and they're doing a grid pattern search, and he comes upon one of these staircases in the woods. And he said it was so strange, like I was so curious about it, but at the same time I wasn't. Like I just knew that I'm supposed to like not pay attention to this. The stairs were wooden and carpeted in white carpeting, and the carpeting was pristine. So it's like, is it a glitch in the matrix? Is it a portal? Is it totally BS?
That's the Fae staircase. Like that's some fairy stuff. You're gonna get snatched up.
Fascinating. Fascinating. So let me just say, just in case it's real, if you are out hiking in the wilderness and you come upon a staircase, stay away from it, because apparently all kinds of chaotic mayhem goes down for the people who attempt to go up these stairs. Sometimes they're made of stone, sometimes they're made of wood, sometimes they're really deteriorated, sometimes they're very like pristine and well maintained. Sometimes one is there, and then the search and rescue guys might come through that grid area again, and the staircase is gone. Like, I don't know, but what do you think about that, Max?
well, I mean, I was hiking just the past weekend in the middle of nowhere. I mean, literally in the middle of nowhere. So I didn't see any staircases, but I know now in the future if I see any ladders or staircases to avoid them
Stay.
because
Here's another thing that's really,
Julie and Dixie, some other people that have said
hi,
hi.
Dennis. Hi, Judy. Here's another thing that's 100% true that's really interesting to think about. So, Kevin and I spend if we have free time, we're in a national park or a state park. Like, Kevin has a lifetime state parks pass. We just wave it and go through. Like, we're hardcore national parks people. And you are not allowed to fly drones in national parks. And I think that one really critical reason for that has to do with wildlife and birds. We have nesting eagles, we have rare species. Um, but I think there might be another reason why you're not allowed to fly drones in national parks. I think there are things on those protected lands that you're not meant to see. They may be military communications outposts. They may be random staircases to nowhere. Um, But it's just an interesting thing the way like they will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law for unleashing a drone in a national park.
Well, I had no idea, but there is the
Yeah.
possibility. Yeah, there is something they're trying to hide as well. But also it destroys the experience as well. So
Well, for other people, yeah, because when we went to Mesa Verde last summer after podcast movement, and I mean, the amount of times that you were told no drones was really like after the third pass, we were like, yeah, got it. No, we don't have a drone. And so with Mesa Verde, like this Mesa Verde, oh my God, pueblos, like ancient, the remnants of dwellings of ancient civilizations, absolutely like fall to your knees in awe and amazement. But I think there are other archaeological sites in the park that they are researching and exploring and unearthing and that have not been open yet to the public. And I think they don't want drones up in there. But Colorado is also ground zero for some real intense Bigfoot activity.
well, there was Bigfoot where I was. I was in the Pisgah National Forest, and there has been Bigfoot activity up there. In fact, they have signs "Beware of Bigfoot," which I think are a little tongue in cheek, but there have been some sightings, and it's a thing up there. It really is.
It's a real thing. We are in the works scheduling a man in Colorado who, I mean, I saw that Tony sent me the pictures of these Bigfoot tracks are like what? So we're in the process of working with him to get him on for an episode of True Weird Stuff. Can I tell you all something I read today that just blew my mind and was so interesting? So I read a recently declassified FBI report on Roswell that was like these um, vehicles, UFOs, flying saucers, whatever we're going to call them, are not journeying here from another planet. They're journeying from an etheric planet, which is on top of ours dimensionally, but inaccessible to us. Declassified FBI report, like Max.
Well, and we've talked about this before, but people say, well, if Bigfoot isn't real, I mean, we don't find Bigfoot bodies and all that sort of stuff, but I do believe that that's part of the reason that the Bigfoot comes from, goes through dimensions, and I think
It's
that's
dimensional.
part of the reason that we don't see that. But there's an Unsolved Mysteries that's on Netflix where they talk about this, and I want to say it was in New Mexico or Arizona where they had, they would disappear. They were there and then they weren't. So
We don't understand. Like sometimes I have to be super careful. Like when I go to bed at night, I have to be really tired and have the television on because if I don't, like my thoughts run away with me. And something happened to the TV in our bedroom. I know how, please don't tell me that it's terrible to sleep with the TV. It's terrible to do a lot of the things I do. Okay. Okay. So my thoughts are worse than anything on the Discovery Channel. So something happened to our cable box, you guys, and I'm lying in bed. Now Kevin's asleep because he's wiped out because he's really like getting out there and rehabbing his leg and it's exhausting. So he's like, and all the cats are like, and I'm lying there and I'm like, okay, the universe. All right, so God created the universe. Where'd God come from? And does that mean the universe is finite? Like, is God holding the universe in the palm of her or its hand? And what's outside of the universe? And why am I a small, stupid monkey who can't understand anything? And now I'm hyperventilating. And if you think I couldn't get to sleep before I started going to, and by the way, I'm not high. Like that's just how it works. Like this is not even like let's smoke up and talk about reality. No, this is just what my brain does if it's quiet for a minute. And I got myself so worked up, like I had a racing heartbeat. I had to get up and walk around the house a little bit and like put my earbuds in because I was totally freaked out. But we know nothing. We know nothing. Nothing.
We just scratched the surface, really. We're absolutely convinced of that. So that's
Ocean
what everybody
mysteries.
all things.
Ocean mysteries always remind me of how much we don't know about our planet at large and in general. Because we know little to nothing about the ocean, and
No,
it's like 70% of this planet.
right.
Aren't you kind of like on the one hand, it's an existential free fall. But on the other hand, isn't it kind of amazing to think of all the things that could be, right?
Yeah.
Like I know it's scary and it does give you like the woo-woos to contemplate it. Like the James Webb Space Telescope is one of the greatest things in my lifetime, and I'm constantly in a cold sweat because the images that come back from the James Webb Telescope are like like the Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, looks an awful lot like Earth when you can see it. And have you seen the images
Yeah.
with better resolution? The Horseshoe Nebula, the Pillars of Creation. These things are just mind blowing,
Mm-hmm.
and I refuse to believe that we're just talking meat. There's more to this, whatever this
Yeah.
is. There's so much more to this.
I I had a similar situation, Sherry, where my power was out for like 6+ hours one night. And I was laying there, and I must have sound at all times. Must have sound. So my brain starts doing the brain things where it's like, huh, when you dream and it's like too real and it's a different version of your reality, I wonder if you're slipping into one of your parallel lives. And then I'm laying there hyperventilating because some of those parallel lives are really scary.
But isn't that there was a book or a movie? Maybe it was a book, and I think it was a book. I wish I could remember the name of it, but this woman, when she went to sleep, she lived in one life,
Mm-hmm.
and when she was awake, she lived in another life. And first of all, like amazing, like to have two completely separate lives. But of course, after a while, the lines start to get blurry and you become panicky. But yeah, Heather, I think that too.
Yeah.
That's why we have to have generators and constant access to the internet so that we're not alone with our thoughts. Max, that doesn't happen to you?
Well, it's funny. I think about that with Mojo, our miniature schnauzer. He has two lives. He has his dream life and he has the real life. And he's in here while I'm working all day, and he's running in his dreams and barking and everything else. They're both his reality. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not going, well, that was just a dream. It's like, no, I'm living there and I'm living here.
That's what's
So,
awesome about being a dog.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
They don't question. See, we're stuck. I think, therefore I am, right? We're
right.
stuck constantly interrogating what is real, what is not real. Whereas Mojo's like, sometimes I'm chasing something in the field and sometimes I'm sleeping in the studio with Max,
Yep.
Yeah,
right? He doesn't
no,
separate the
I don't think
two. Another life, Billy Prevet, that might be it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, Kathy says she's a huge True Weird Stuff fan, but the Enema King was a bit much.
it's so
Well, girl, yes. But did you know that about Louis the 14th and Versailles? Did anybody know that about Louis the 14th?
a couple of people said my
I did
picture
not.
froze. I don't. Do you don't see that? Do you, Heather?
I don't. You're
He
moving.
looks a little
It is just
pixely.
your internet is jumping a little bit pixelated, but
Okay.
you're still moving.
Okay. I just wondered because it doesn't
And
look that
yes,
way to me.
somebody asked if yes, that is Max on the right. We don't drag Max out for regular happy hours because when I tell you, like, y'all think I'm kidding. When I tell you that Max works 13, 14-hour days, Max works 13, 14-hour days, and he needs to be done with us.
Okay.
We make an exception for True Weird because he's a great big weirdo and has to scratch that itch just like the rest of us.
Tony
Okay.
Garcia says I'm frozen.
Okay, let me do this. Let's try
Is that
now.
better?
I know. Because it all looks the same to me. So
Yeah. And it's not frozen for me, so that's interesting. But
I rarely have internet problems here. So
yeah.
well. Oh, so the enema. edition of True Weird Stuff. First of all, you have to know if you listen past the credits and listen all the way in, you can hear some outtakes that we had. We had so many problems when we were recording that. Sherry had heating and air people there, and so there was a lot of noise. And then I had leaf blowers outside here. There was so many distractions. We had technical problems on top of all that stuff. We had technical problems. So there's some outtakes at the end of it that I saved and stuck at the end if you want to listen to
We
those.
had meowing.
Um,
I mean, we had everything. I reflected on that later, and I thought that the ghost of Louis the 14th was not pleased to be remembered in this way. But you know what? We didn't just talk about his intestinal tract. I mean,
Max,
he
let me boot you and just immediately
you
come
want to
back.
bounce
Okay?
him?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That. Oh,
Oh, oh, girl, Heather, let me read what Susan just posted. I'd forgotten this, but when I was a small child, I dreamed about a man chasing me. Then on Sunday morning, that man was in church. I'd never seen him before. I was petrified.
I would have been
Dreaming I was
too.
being chased was a common dream, but only once by that man.
I
Ooh.
I have very detailed dreams about myself in another life, and it's several different lives, but I'm very like their details are very intricate. I have other jobs. I have a husband in one of them, and that's what freaks me out. Um,
The idea of having a husband, girl, so relatable.
well, it's just like the multitude of different. Max is blank now. Interesting. Um, okay, one more time.
I'm telling you, Louis the 14th does not appreciate being made fun of. Did we get him back?
I'm texting him.
We're trying to get him back. Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes the internet just is not fun.
Um, so so the thing about okay, so the Enema King, the
Max
thing
was abducted. Hope not.
he was abducted. So Louis the 14th, he ascended to the throne when he was just 5 years old, and he was really neglected by his mother and raised by servants and courtiers. And um, I mean, being a king at age 5 is no small thing. And he lived at a time when there wasn't antibiotics. We didn't have vaccines for like measles, and he or smallpox. So he got smallpox, he got measles, he suffered from unbelievable health issues throughout his life, hookworms, and he probably had maybe like a chronic bowel disorder, who knows. But the royal physicians, they believed so firmly in two things: bloodletting and the enema, which they called at the time in France they called it a clyster, after the Greek word for cleanse. Well, I'm going to mispronounce it. Clusion is how it's spelled. But anyway, so the royal physicians, it was their job to keep the king alive and healthy, or they could be executed. So they did what they knew to do. They did bloodletting, and they gave him 3 or more enemas per day, Heather, per day. That man, I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow ain't got nothing on King Louis, okay? Because like one coffee enema a month, girl, does not even get close to what the Sun King endured. And the royal physicians kept the most detailed notes you can imagine, which is why we even know this. Meanwhile, this is the same dude who is the longest serving monarch in human history, and he built Versailles, which is still one of the great human accomplishments of all time. All of this while constantly racing to the chamber pot to produce ye old royal movement. Like it was really, wasn't it, Max? It was
Yeah.
really something.
And of course, add to this what hygiene was like at that time. They thought water was bad for you. So they weren't doing a lot of bathing there at Versailles. They just wearing a lot of perfume and a lot of heavy clothing and wigs. I mean, oh,
My favorite, we kind of, before we took you to Versailles and Louis the 14th, we started in ancient Egypt, because I'm telling you, the ancient Egyptians invented every single damn thing except for Miracle Whip, okay? Like they got there first for everything. So we started in ancient Egypt and then we went to ancient Rome, where it was very, very common to have a hot vinegar enema. And buddy, that is going to get your attention. I just can't imagine that wouldn't be miserable.
When Sherry said we were doing this and we had the discussion afterwards, I had to talk about when I was a kid. My parents, that's what if we were sick, that's what they would do. It seems so weird now, but at the time you just went, well, that's what we're doing. You're a kid. You just go accept whatever's coming your way.
Max, I was so proud of you. Um, Alvin Foot says, I hear you on the radio in the morning. I just tuned in. IDK what you guys are talking about. Alvin, welcome to True Weird Wednesday. It's the happy hour where we talk about all the stuff we do on. Max and I do a podcast called True Weird Stuff. So, Alvin, my friend, you are not listening to what you hear on the radio. This is very different. Do stick around, though. You might enjoy it. Matt, I was so proud of Max for just coming right out and normalizing the warm tea enema, which he was given as a child, anytime he had a tummy upset.
Yep, that's right. That's what they would do. They would go and they'd get tea in a pot on the stove, and then we'd make sure it was just warm, and that's what they would do.
Regina said, I remember the red bag in the shower as a kid, had no clue what it was for years. So in the after we do, so for True Weird Stuff, if you've never listened, we tell you the story and then Max and I kind of break it down and analyze it and talk about it afterward. And I have a friend who says, oh yeah, enemas are a really big part of my lifestyle as a gay man. And then one of our listeners reached out to me and said, oh yeah, so totally true, which I was so glad to learn because be like a lifelong learner. I think that until you really understand like how other people are navigating this crazy maze that is whatever it is, I think that until you kind of climb into other people's lives and look at how they live, you can't really appreciate like that we're all just doing the best we can. I was super delighted to learn that because, as you know, I'm super, super keenly, enthusiastically interested in everyone's business.
Jane says, classy, we just got warm, soapy water enemas. Oh, yeah?
Your parents fun for the
we
tea.
got.
Well, Max's parents, Max's mom and dad lived till they were like 102. They were believers in the olden ways. And for all I know, George Washington had warm tea enemas. Max, you're very, very good. And by the way, Max has not had a warm tea enema in a very, very long time.
Well, thank you for pointing that out, Sherry. I appreciate that.
Well, I thought I would in case anyone DM'd you later to get the recipe.
You can buy them that look like that on eBay because I looked.
Some of y'all in the comments are my favorite people, and I can't read the comment out loud, but it cracked me up.
It's so awesome. Like people, there may be whole acres of your life where you can't be you, but you can be you here.
Mhm.
In fact, the more you are, the happier we are. So go ahead and be you. Oh my God, Denise had ivory soap enemas. Well, my goodness, that would be. You know what my favorite thing was that you told me though in that postmortem, Max?
What?
Max is like, you can buy a used red rubber enema bag on. Folks, go ahead and spring for the new one. I know inflation is a stone cold bitch and all, but go ahead and get you a brand new enema.
I have a sneaking suspicion that there's some kind of particular kink that goes
Oh God.
There's a kink for everything,
Yeah,
so.
there's a pervert for, I don't care. You could take a grapefruit and I'll find you a pervert that's really excited to see it.
Serena Victoria said, y'all are traumatizing me.
It was traumatizing doing that one a little bit. All of the stuff that King Louis had to endure. Oh, good heavens.
Well, the poor man had an anal fistula, which I did not know. I'm very thankful. Thank you that I did not know what that was. I hear the word fistula and I'm picturing like Heather, like a big floppy growth.
Yeah.
It's a hole. It's an abscess. Yes.
Oh my
So he had a rectal fistula. He was so beloved by his people. No, shut up, listen to me. He was the first influencer. He was a superstar. He was so beloved by his people that his people started going around and saying, I too have an anal fistula. Like it was in style to have an anal fistula. And so the royal physician, Dr. Felix de Tassi, he went to these hospitals in Paris where poor people were and did experimental surgeries on them to figure out how to cure the king's anal fistula. And a lot of those people didn't survive. So let me tell you, revolution, because this is how the powerful elite do you. They'll haul you out of your hospital bed and experiment on you till you die for the king. Okay. Remember that. So all of these people were tormented while the royal physician figured out a way to handle the royal fistula. And he invented a surgical tool, a long, thin, curving blade. And I'm just going to tell you because you're dying to know the fistula was on King Louis's taint. And they had to just stab it with that dagger and just, oh my God, there was no anesthesia. There was no anesthesia. Can we all raise a glass to being alive today when at minimum we have Novocaine? Cheers, everybody.
Kid,
So, yeah,
who did he piss off in a past life that
I'll
that
tell
was
you
his
what.
reality?
Well, he had all this stuff, and of course, then he had all his teeth taken out too.
Oh, he suffered, Heather, and
Yeah.
so um so King Louis had a lot of health issues, and he also developed a nasal fistula. The nasal fistula came first, right? So the nasal fistula was like a hole in his nasal passages connecting to his mouth. So anytime the poor king would take a drink of something, the liquid would spray up and into his nose, which was very, very miserable and uncomfortable and unsightly and unhygienic and unbefitting a king. So the royal physicians decided that they needed to fix that. And so they sealed that closed with a red hot iron, no anesthesia. He had to hold still while they put a red hot iron in his nostril. Like, you know that expression, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown? What damn if that didn't apply to King Louis the 14th.
Poor guy. Oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Hello. Oh, there's Julie. She can't hear us. I don't
I'm
know
sorry,
why.
Julie.
Sorry about that.
Julie, it's because we started talking about Louis the 14th. Max and I, in a year plus, have never had the kind of problems we had making that episode.
Good.
It got to the point where we were laughing at all of the issues that we had. So if you believe in ghosts, I think we're getting punished by one.
But we remember King Louis. He should be happy that we're remembering him. Probably just not in the way that he'd like.
Look what Cheryl Newton just said. Bob, Bob would be praying for the sweet release of death right now.
True.
So let me read what Kathy John Lemaster said. I had an abscess in my butt when I was 15 years old, God's truth. I had to have surgery and carry a pillow around my high school. It was legendary. And they had to drain my abscess every day until I had surgery. Very painful. They took a stick of silver nitrate and burned it every day. So I couldn't have surgery until school was out for the summer. Looking back, WTF, I should have had immediate surgery. Kathy, I feel like I've known you for a long time, and I can't believe you've carried this painful secret. Please.
Good heavens. And you went to school with that.
I'm
A
sorry.
teenage girl having to go to school with that and that kind of suffering.
And you thought acne was bad. Oh, this.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what I mean when I say, as a social worker, we don't understand the burdens that others are carrying. We don't understand their path that they're walking. And we should be so slow to judge because there were probably some real bitches, Kathy, in your high school that were like, she thinks she's all that. And they had no idea that for all of your beauty and popularity, that you were having to deal with that every single day. We should be kind. We should always be kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and thank you for all those of you that have left comments and reviews and that sort of thing on the Apple. I know that you can leave reviews there. You can't do that, I don't think, if you listen through the app. But thank you for rating it and that sort of stuff. That does make a difference for us. It does.
It does.
It keeps us going, honestly, because we do this podcast after we've done all of our other work, and it's some days I feel terrible because it's so much on Max. Um, and I spend all if I'm not working, I'm writing. I spend all of my time writing. And only a teacher's pet dweeby nerd like me would find it delightful to write basically a term paper every week. I'm super excited about this Friday's episode. So is Max. We're really excited to bring you
This is
this
going to be
one.
a really good one.
And we have an awesome one for you next Friday, too, that we're really excited about. I've been working on one for a while. My mom and I went and we visited a haunted, unclean, unholy place. And it left us both really, really troubled. And I've been working on that episode, but it's so heart-wrenching
Hmm.
that it's one of those where I work on it and then I set it aside and do something else and come back to it. It's the Mountain Meadow Massacre of the Fancher Wagon Train by Mormon men disguised as Paiute um, Indians. And I had the wildest experience a few weeks ago. Y'all know I went to visit my mom in Utah. And so my brother Dale, my bonus brother Dale, passed away. All my bonus brothers are way older than I was, and it was really hard. And I was chatting with his son's wife, and we got on the subject of the Mountain Meadow Massacre, and she got all emotional, and she said, "Those are my ancestors who dressed up as Paiute Indians, and I will never be able to escape the shame and the horror of that." And I was like, "Girl, you need to set yourself free. That wasn't you." Um, the church has taken full responsibility and accountability for that. Now, it took them a hot freaking minute, but they did. And the people that did that, that's not you. We can't, we can't blame ourselves for the sins of our ancestors. Um, we have to set ourselves free from that. But that was a wild discovery, Max, to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look forward to that episode. If you have a favorite episode, let us know, because we're interested in which ones you seem to have particularly liked. We have some idea from it, but the one about the children,
The Black-Eyed Kids.
black-eyed kids, that one seemed to get a pretty good response. The
I mean, left to my devices, you know that every episode would be about aliens and Bigfoot.
It's the thing that I like about it is, there's so many different ways you go with it. I mean, the woman who was the lady hooch hunter was another favorite episode of mine. The woman that worked for the U.S. Marshals.
The revenuers,
I
yeah.
never.
Wild West Pearl.
Oh yeah, that was a good one too.
My favorite.
Yeah.
I re-listen to that one often because I like it so much.
Tessa, when we spoke to the psychic, that's the James Van Prague episode called Listening to Heaven, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really big one. And somebody liked my missing time episode. So when I was out in Utah last month, I was there with my mom and my big brother and his wife and Kevin and some other family members on my western side of my family. And that came up, and my brother was like, "Don't want to go there. Don't want to talk about it."
Oh.
And my mom it's weird. My mom's brought it up to me a couple of times. She's like, "Sheri, remember that time?" And of course I remember it, but I remember the beginning, and then I remember what happened next, but there's about 12, maybe 13 hours in between that I don't remember, that are very troubling and clearly very troubling to my mom. And it was interesting because when I've tried to get them to talk about that night and what happened to our family, everyone pushes back on it. But my mom, maybe because she's 81 and starting to reflect on things, my mom has been wanting to talk about it.
What's interesting to me is they're not saying, "Oh, you and your imagination." They're saying, "I don't want to talk about it." That lets you know they experienced something as well. It wasn't just you.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. I think so. I do think that of my family, I have the least fucks to give if you think I'm kooky. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't care. I don't care if you think I'm a kook. I'm fine with that. It's fine, whatever. But my family, they're a little different. They do care, and everyone's experience of this event, we shared it together, but what we took away from it and how we've processed it is different. Um, so it was interesting to have my mom wanting to bring it up. And so Robin is asking the question. Yes, the whole family lost time. So one minute we were driving, it was my mom and dad in the front seat and me and my two brothers in the back seat. And my parents, we had no money, and it was like they were scraping nickels together for gas. And they decided that they would go through the pass and come down into Jackson Hole and then into the valley, which was shorter miles wise and would require less gas. But it was definitely a more rock and roll kind of a drive because it's a mountain pass at night. And we were driving, and up ahead was a really bright light, and my parents assumed it was a highway patrol traffic stop. And my last memory is being in the back seat, and my mom has curly hair like I do, like not curly, but like this. And the outlines of her hair illuminated in this blinding light. And then the next thing that any of us know, it was about 13 hours later, and we were on our way home, and we were all violently sick. And we pulled up in front of our little house, our little rental house. And I remember my mother saying, I think we have carbon monoxide poisoning. And we staggered into the house and we all collapsed and slept for a day. And then, and then, so of course, I was always that kid, right? I was always that kid. And so then when we were all awake and kind of moving around again, I was like, well, are we going to get the car fixed? Because I was an anxious child. Because we have carbon monoxide poisoning. Are we going to get the car fixed? We're going to get the car fixed. And both my parents were like, enough about the car. And they never took the car to be repaired. And they would never talk about it again. And my brothers were like, you need to shut up or you're going to get us all in trouble. And it was just this thing that happened, and then we were like supposed to act like it didn't happen. And I carried it with me my whole life. And I would occasionally go, hey, remember that time? And everybody would shut me down. But recently, my mom has wanted to talk about it. So to answer your question, Robin, we all lost that time. We all lost that time. 5 of us. And um, we've had each of us has had different kind of consequences as a result of that. But who knows, right? It could be my overactive imagination, right, Max? Could be anything.
No, I think the fact that you all did have a similar experience is not an active imagination, and the fact your brother doesn't really want to talk about it is very telling as well. So,
Well, that's my best friend Shelby and I had a very similar. We saw the same exact thing, and I wouldn't have believed myself, just my own. If she hadn't seen it too, I wouldn't have believed it. So it's the same thing for you. Like they all experienced the same thing. You can blame your overactive imagination when it's just you, but when it was all of them, it's a lot more difficult to dismiss.
I can tell you that we all have significant issues with anesthesia. I can't stay under.
Mhm.
I cannot stay under. I wake up. I've had a handful of procedures that required anesthesia, and I wake up almost every time in a panic, throwing punches and screaming and pulling out. Yeah, like there's a lot of strange stuff, and I'm really like okay with it, like because it like it's all I've since I was little, and talking to angels and telling my mother I was being visited. Like I've always been this way. So I'm just okay with it because I don't know any other way to be. But it was frustrating for me for the longest time that nobody wanted to like even consider like where were we? How did we get from how did we get from the eastern side of the pass to the Snake River Canyon? And none of you remember any of that drive.
Yeah.
And also, why did it take 13 hours to drive what should have taken maybe 4? Like, why are we pretending like that was a thing that didn't happen? That's all. That's
Yeah.
all. I don't think anybody knows anything, but could we stop pretending that that wasn't really fucking weird and something went down?
It has to be really nice for you to be able to finally like cathartically talk about it.
I would think.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to not be. I was made fun of so much in my family for my imagination. It's nice to have that be gone. I
Mhm.
think that, like, one of the things I did with my children, I took whatever they said to me as though it were the stone cold fact, because I knew so well what it was like to always be mocked and disbelieved. So I definitely, I mean, I probably swung the pendulum too far in believing everything, every kooky thing my kids said. But I just think when you have an entire family that's got roughly, we'll say 9 to maybe 11 hours that they can't account for, that we should maybe think that that ought to be looked at.
Yeah.
I see some Tessa was talking about Gettysburg. She was we were talking about strange things, and she had mentioned that somewhere in one of these comments. And I have been to Gettysburg many times as a child. In fact, when I was a kid, I made a model of the battlefield at
Mhm.
Gettysburg. I just fascinated with it, and was meeting a friend there, and stopped by this little roadside cemetery. And I'm telling you, that is one spooky place. They say that it is one of the most haunted places in the
Mhm.
world. And I absolutely believe that. That is a spooky place.
I went there with grandma when I was younger, and it is a not the cemetery, but the battlefield. It is a strange feeling when the sun starts to set. It is like very stuck parallel universe feeling.
It's a haunted place, don't you think?
Yeah.
I think it's very haunted. Yeah. And it's been proved out over the years with different buildings and whatnot that are haunted. The thing that's interesting about Gettysburg is it pretty much is like it was when the battle took place. I mean, it's not been built up very much at all. And it's just a very, very spooky place.
I've read back to Reddit again, Max and Heather. I read a really interesting post on Reddit a couple years ago um, about he was probably 12, and his dad was really into every possible historical site. And so they went to Gettysburg, and he and his dad were walking through Gettysburg. Now he's 12 and he has only the most um, broad idea of what it was, a battlefield, the Civil War. Like he only has the most broad idea of what happened at Gettysburg, and he glitched through time.
Mm.
Which Heather's over there nodding like, yes, Queen, it happens because it does, right? He glitched through time. 1 minute he was with his dad, and it was like a June afternoon, and they were wandering through the battlefield. And the next minute, he could smell the smoke of wood fires and he could hear voices.
Mm.
And he glitched in time. And luckily for him, he glitched back,
Yeah.
because it makes you wonder. I'll say this to Heather because she'll know. Some people that go missing, maybe they just fell out of time and
Right.
they're
Yeah.
perfectly fine somewhere else. But any Hoosers, he came back in. He like about wet himself because at 12 he was not prepared at all.
Yeah.
Like, and none of us would be, right, Max? But
Right.
he fell right into the, because again, time being circular, Einstein, he kind of fell into the past and was just wide-eyed and astounded and puzzled and frightened and couldn't find his dad. And then thank goodness he did.
There are a lot
Mhm.
of people that believe that wormholes only exist in space, but I do think that they exist here on Earth. I do think there are places you can go that you are either propelled forward or kind of stuck, rubber banding in time.
I think so too. I love creepypasta stuff. And so I remember one Reddit post that I just ate up with a spoon. This 8-year-old boy um, was walking home from school, and he went to his house, and it wasn't, his family wasn't there. And anyway, long story short, he ended up getting scooped up by the police, social services. He was placed in a foster family. He never returned to his own time. And his family never had any idea what had happened to him. And he lived his whole life in this alternate timeline as a completely different person, although he was always aware that there was something wrong, that he belonged somewhere else, that he was someone else's son, that he had had a different life. And I know a lot of people, skeptics and debunkers, say that's just bullshit, bless you. And, those people are just making it up. And, if they are, like, somebody at Random House or whatever needs to get them under contract, because these people are incredible storytellers.
Mhm.
They are just incredible storytellers. And if it's make believe, whatever they're doing for a living, they're in the wrong job. They should be writing fiction. It's good
Susan Kirk
stuff.
says, I love first person glitch in the universe stuff. That is really neat. I've seen a lot of that online where people will find one girl found her nose ring that she was currently wearing in the carpet when she was moving out of her house. And she'd never had two of them. It was a pretty unique one. And so it was like, what? How did, where did this come from? Because she was currently wearing the exact same one and she'd never owned two of them. So it was one of those glitches in the matrix. It was very interesting.
I'll say this about the human brain. We are extraordinary machines. We have the ability to take the inexplicable and find a way to make sense of it and then set it aside, right? Which is probably a good thing, because I suspect that more of us than we know have moved in and out of the inexplicable, and we chalk it up to, I was tired, I was dreaming, I'm over imaginative, I'm dramatic, my parents said I made it up, so I must have made it up. Like, there's just so much that at some point you have to go, God, there's so much. What are the odds that all of it is
Yeah,
bogus?
right. It can't all be.
I like
So
what
Jason
Jesse
says we're
J.
in a simulation. And you know what? Um, of all the kooky things, like, that actually really resonates with me. And it doesn't it doesn't come into conflict with a belief in God or a creator at all for me. Like, we could totally be in a simulation, not just your life, your individual consciousness, but like all of it. There's so many weird facts that we can't reconcile. Just the fossil record alone. This is something we talk about a lot on True Weird Stuff. Like, yeah, there's like this giant ass weird gap in the fossil record, and then blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I think anything's possible. And wouldn't you rather live in a world where anything was possible? You know?
I All I'm asking is whoever's controlling my particular sim, can you have her go to bed before 3 a.m. every night? Like actually let me sleep, please?
It's especially because right now, I'll be honest, y'all know that, I mean, since this is True Weird Wednesday, I don't have to pretend to be a regular girl. I am an apocalyptic weirdo. And like, I don't love what is happening in the world right now. It feels everything from, and you think I'm talking about politics. No, I'm talking about like the Earth's magnetic pole shifting and the weird activity on the sun and James Webb Space Telescope and on
Mhm.
and on and on. And I feel like, yeah, something like we're living in interesting times. We are definitely living in interesting
Yeah.
times.
Or-
Before we go, I do want to mention that the True Weird Stuff website was hacked, and so
Yeah.
we're having to redo that. Poor Heather has been going through it with all of the hacking stuff that we've gone with all of our websites that we've had going on. But it will return at some point along the line. So if you've gone there, just know that it will be coming back.
It will be coming back. I'm actually working on it tomorrow through the weekend, so I'm hoping to have it done by Monday.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so by Monday we'll have something up. But I do apologize for it being down currently right now. I'm working as fast as I can, as fast as my little hands can go.
You guys, what Heather has been through, how many days has it been now? About,
Oh, it was straight. It's been straight for 3 weeks.
yeah,
And
we're coming up on a month.
I did not want to speak about it until we got everything under control for reasons. Anyone in the cybersecurity community will understand that once you tell people that there's a problem, other nefarious entities will start to pop on the train with them. So you have to kind of get everything sorted and get protections up before you speak about it. So we're only talking about it now that everything's under control.
You know what was wild about it is when we worked in corporate radio, there was a giant ransomware hack that took down everything, and we had to pay. Well, we didn't have to pay it. The corporation that we worked for had to pay ransom to get our digital properties back. This was not a ransomware hack.
Mm-mm.
They never asked for anything.
No.
They just would not stop. Like it was like like the most malevolent mosquito. Just when Heather would say, "Okay, I think we're good," bam, it would come back again. And it just, I think, is Exhibit A, and people are terrible, and we're living in terrible times. But like it was exhausting because what ended up happening was if you went to like True Weird or bobandcherry.com during this period, you would get a thing about win a free iPhone. That was what I usually got, some sort of win a free iPhone thing. And those, then if you clicked on it, now there's malware maybe being installed on your device. And it was just hateful and terrible. And I mean, nothing that ever came out of King Louis's intestines was as disgusting as what these hackers did to Heather.
And I'm
So,
so sorry for anyone that was impacted. Um, you should be able to get your regular fireware or firmware to deal with that. Um, it was just a pain, and there was not really much we could do. I answered everyone privately in DMs that asked about it, or that if you reached out an email, I talked to you about it. Um, but I will feel free to email me if you have any questions or issues, and I will do my best to try and help.
Jen Benefield is in the cyber liability game, Heather. She said,
Please,
DM her.
yeah.
I'm so sorry for any of you that got hijacked by that. It was no sooner would Heather beat down one and we would go, whew, then another one would come in. And to this day, we can't tell you why. They never asked for anything.
No, I don't know why they did it. Kelly, no, this didn't affect our app at all. That you'll have to email me about, just heather@bobandcherry.com, and I'll see if I can't get you back on with the app.
So we're past 8 o'clock and we know that y'all have lives. I know that when we sign off, I'm going to go watch like some DVR Skinwalker Ranch stuff because it's always weird for me 24/7. We just want to say thank you. When we launched this project, we launched it on January 13th, 2023, Friday the 13th. But by that point, Max and I had been working on it for what, about 4 months, 5 months?
Mhm.
When we launched this, we were like, I don't know. We know we're into it, right? And we've been just so blown away. Like this is our passion project. We don't make anything on this, and this isn't like a profit thing. This is just something we do because we're also bizarre. And to know that there are so many people out there that are freaky too has been extremely comforting to us.
And thank you for coming to this too. So it's really appreciated. It is, because as Sheri says, we went, okay, well, this amuses us. I don't know if anybody else is going to be amused by this, but we like it. So
And for like one of the things that I will always remember about my radio career was we we had a really big client that refused to partner with us because I believe in aliens. Like it was really a problem. And at first I was like, well, you and the horse you came in on. And then I thought, you know what? You do you. But I am not going to be fake and I'm not going to pretend to be something other than I'm not to get you to like play ball with the radio show. And Max and I, like, we used to joke about, oh, we're into serial killers. Oh, bad, too bad for us. But we are who we are, and y'all who you are. And Heather is clearly one of the tribe. And so we're super thankful to you all, not just for listening and participating in True Weird Wednesday Happy Hour, but for making us feel like we're not the two creepy kids in the back of the classroom that nobody wants to play with. So we will do True Weird Wednesday. I think we're going to do it, what, every like 3 weeks, every
yeah,
month or so, Heather.
Yeah, it should be every 3 weeks on a Wednesday.
Unless I can convince Bob, like, maybe I taxidermy him and he's sitting here stuffed and agrees to play ball with it. So thank you so very much for listening to the show and for joining us for happy hour. And we will see you on the regular Bob and Sheri show tomorrow and this week on Friday, because I always like to tell you on happy hour what the People's Movie Critic is doing. So Lamar hates scary movies and the paranormal. Max and I can freak Lamar out, like, and ruin his day just by talking a little bit about what we're working on for that week's True Weird Stuff. It's so funny. But Lamar decided to go see the movie Abigail, which is a scary movie. It's like a horror movie. And he said it just looked really good. And I went, and I think he loved it. And you're going to hear that review on Friday. So cheers, everybody. Join us for the new True Weird episode about Liberace. He's more than just a cheeseball pompadour piano player that your grandma had a thing for. We'll see you Friday. Thank you all. Good night.